All right, welcome everybody here. My name is Katie Booty Adorno. I'm founder and CEO here at Leanlab Education, and we are so excited to have a lightning quick discussion this afternoon about insights from our co-design research as it relates to AI products in real K-12 classrooms in the US, and bringing some more perspective to this catchphrase of humans in the loop. So with all that being said, we're going to get started. Leanlab Education, if you don't know what we do, we are a nonprofit. We help edtech companies measure impact through what we call co-design product research. We have a network of schools and individual educators across the US. We pair them with typically emerging edtech products to engage in co-development and evaluation. I'm joined today by three of my great colleagues: Robin Vatter, who's organized this whole event, Dr. Lynn Harden, who will speak to our research perspectives, and Andy Midget, who runs our EdTech partnerships, who will talk about takeaways. So without further ado, we're going to jump right into the work, and our hope is to leave some room for Q&A towards the end here. But to start off with sorry, I have a dog that might be barking in the background. But part one, it's no surprise that there's been an explosion of edtech, particularly AI products, over the last couple of years. A couple of quick data points to put some numbers to what we've all experienced anecdotally is that over 57 billion interactions across 9,000 edtech products just in the year 23-24. Breach Capital identified 280 edtech tools using generative AI already, predicted to see 10x growth in this sector over the next decade. And then from EdTech Insider's database of 439 AI tools in education, we see these keywords come up again and again, 123 times. Claims around personalization, 26 claims around automating tasks, and 16 referring to AI as having revolutionary or revolutionizing potential. If you want to go on to the next. And then we also wanted to, so that's what edtech companies are saying. We also wanted to look at the perspective of educators. What are teachers saying about the potential and interest regarding AI tools? What we see here are some trends. First one around the desire to generate content prepping for instructional materials. The second for brainstorming new creative ideas for classrooms. And last but not least, this desire to leverage AI for increased differentiation or personalization for student learning. Some pluses and deltas as it regards to teachers' perspective AI. We are seeing educators being optimistic about the future of AI in education. Potential benefits they're seeing as the potential for efficiency, saving teacher time, as well as providing this personalized learning experiences to students. Concerns, however, we consistently are hearing that still concerns around students leveraging AI for cheating, lack of training and support for educators to best understand how to leverage AI in the classroom, and then persistent concerns around data privacy and protection. What data are these products taking from students in classrooms? And we'll get more into the concerns around AI trust in a little bit as well. That said, with all of this explosion in the sector around availability of AI-enabled tools, from our perspective, where we focus on co-design, is we really wanted to understand, are these tools living up to their claims and their promise when we actually implement them in the classroom? So what we've been doing over the last year is working with a group of AI companies, as well as our school and educator partners, to test and trial these solutions in real authentic learning settings to learn more about what's occurring when the rubber hits the road of AI implementation. Specifically, what we've done is we conducted 6 co-design research studies with 5 edtech companies that are focused on AI-powered solutions from January to August 2024. We've anonymized those companies and the findings here, but we're talking more at a high level today. All of these products were supplemental solutions. 2 studies were literature reviews, desk research, logic models, and 4 studies engaged teachers and students and directly or were implemented in classrooms directly. We engaged 42 educators and their students across the whole K-12 spectrum of elementary, middle, and high. And studies range from product validation, so getting quick, rapid cycle feedback from small groups of educators, to feasibility, where we're actually asking the educators to implement the product in their classroom and use it over a period of time. With that, I gave you a high-level overview. Even since we've been working on this deck, more data has been coming out around AI. I'll throw it in the chat, some articles that have come around mapping AI solutions, as well as what we're seeing around AI use. But in the meantime, I'm going to pass it over to Dr. Lynn Harden, who's going to go deeper into what we actually experienced and learned studying these tools in real classrooms with educators.
Great. Thanks so much, Katie. As Katie said, I'm Lynn Harden. I'm one of the principal researchers here at Leanlab Education, and I actually conducted several of the studies with AI tools that we'll talk about. So I'm really excited to be able to share some of our high-level findings from these studies and themes. But I just want to start actually with the main headline from these studies that we did, which is that we discovered there's often a gulf or a disconnect between the expectations that educators have for AI tools and what they can do, and the reality of where many AI tools are at right now in terms of their capabilities. So let's look first at some bigger themes from our research, and then I'll share more detailed examples from the various studies that we've done and show how the co-design research we do here at Leanlab can actually help to bridge that gap between expectations and reality with AI tools. Okay, firstly, in our research, we were able to confirm that the expectations our educator participants have for AI edtech tools are very similar to those of the survey respondents that Katie described earlier. Our educators expect AI tools to save them time and help with instructional design, content creation, and delivery, as well as support differentiation in the classroom and engage students. On the product side, many of the AI tools we conducted research with are trying to help teachers with many of these same things. So differentiated learning, student engagement, and supporting educators and instructional design. So the educator expectations and product developer intentions seem to be well aligned, which is great. However, when we took these tools for a spin in authentic classroom environments, we frequently uncovered technical issues that often prevented easy and streamlined use of the tools, as well as some shortcomings in terms of their ability to differentiate content. Additionally, we discovered some perhaps more interesting potential barriers to use, one being that the tools did not always integrate well into educators' workflows. And actually, intriguingly, many educators struggle to fully trust the accuracy and quality of AI outputs. All right, so how have we been able to bridge the gap between expectations and reality with AI tools through co-design research with educators and students? Firstly, let's look at the expectation that AI tools will save educators time. In one of the rapid cycle evaluation studies we did, we discovered very early on in the study from teachers that the AI tool's output was taking a really long time to load. And not only that, but when it finally did load, student engagement with the content only lasted for a couple of minutes before the educator would then have to reload new content. In our rapid cycle evaluation studies, we're able to provide developers with insights quickly and frequently throughout the study just by the study design, which meant that in this case, the developers were able to improve the content loading time and increase student engagement time with more complex content. And teacher and student participants were actually able to see and experience these changes even before the study was over. In a different usability and feasibility study we did with an AI tool, we uncovered a pretty similar issue where the AI-generated lesson plans were taking up to an hour to generate. Not only did the teacher participants flag this problem, but they identified it as a potentially huge barrier to adoption and use of the tool. And as a result, the tool developers were able to make this a high priority to fix the problem before rolling out the tool for broader use. All right, co-design research for us is all about bringing educator and student voices to the forefront. So we want to share some educator voices directly through some direct quotes from our studies that have been de-identified. I just want to kind of point out this top quote, which is a teacher expressing, just their their understanding of AI, or at least their expectation of AI, is as being able to not only save them time, but help them do things faster. And as we've seen, like, this may not always necessarily be the case. The quote on the bottom is a similar sentiment where, the time they were spending actually trying to make the lesson was so much less than the time that it took AI to generate it. And we really need to make those things reduce that time significantly for teachers. Okay, what were we able to learn about how well AI-powered tools are supporting differentiated learning in the classroom, and what product improvements developers can make on this front? In two different feasibility studies that we did with AI tools, we learned that two different AI tools were not actually as useful to students who were on the lower end of the skill spectrum, because the tools assumed a certain level of basic skills mastery. So because of this, educators weren't actually able to differentiate AI-generated or supported content and lessons for all of their students like they were expected to. So because of this, we were again able to make recommendations to developers on how to make these tools more accessible to a wider diversity of students. So for example, just offering additional scaffolding and support in the tool, or even more simply, in some cases, just allowing students to slow down the pace of video or audio content. And again, just bringing our educator voices to the forefront here, I want to point out this talk quote, which I thought was particularly insightful, from one of our teachers. She said that the students who need the most help are actually those who struggle the most. And so if you think about, what we've learned in terms of some of these tools are not actually helping those kids who are struggling the most, that's a pretty significant disconnect between what students need and what teachers need and what these tools are able to do. All right, and finally, let's look at an example of what our research uncovered about AI-powered tools' ability to support instructional design and delivery. In a feasibility study we did with an AI tool, we learned from the teacher participants that when they were trying to use the tool to generate customized lessons, they weren't able to add video or image content to the lessons, even though this was what the tool advertised as one of its main capabilities. They also weren't able to publish their lessons online for students to use. So again, fortunately, thanks to the teacher participants, we caught these issues very early on and were able to flag them for the product developers, and thus they were able to fix these problems for the teachers before they use the tool more regularly in their classrooms. All right, so I mentioned earlier that one of the most important findings that came out of our AI research that was maybe not a significant theme in the survey data that we've looked at in terms of teacher perception about AI is this issue of trust. Our results show that several of the teachers who have participated in our studies are still skeptical about the accuracy, capabilities, and consistency of AI-powered edtech tools. And not only that, but every time these teachers have an experience with an AI tech tool with inconsistent or inaccurate AI-generated content, it just reinforces that sentiment for them. And this may actually help explain why not many teachers seem to be using AI tools currently for things like grading, even though grading is one of the more time-consuming activities that teachers do. Again, just sharing some final quotes from our teachers. These two quotes are from the same teacher. Again, really insightful. The top one, in order for something to be effective as a teaching tool, it needs to be predictable and consistent. Again, implying here that maybe our AI tools aren't as predictable and consistent as they could be right now. And I think I would need to be more trusting. I think I would be more trusting of the tools if I just understood them or understood how they work. All right, so I talked a lot about kind of some of the issues that we've uncovered, or the challenges, the barriers to use of these AI tools, but I do want to make sure to talk briefly about the things that we uncovered that are going really well, the positive impacts that the AI tools are having and have the potential to have on teachers and students. And so one of them was around new and novel idea generation. Teachers in the studies that we conducted really do, for the most part, feel like AI is helping them come up with new and novel ways of covering content, covering material, and generating new ideas for keeping classrooms engaging to students. The teacher that said this quote is talking specifically around review material. So going over material that you've already gone over can be kind of like boring for students. So how can you use AI to review material in a way that's new and novel and a little bit innovative to keep things engaging? All right, so I'm going to pass it over to Andy Midget, our Director of EdTech Partnerships now, to talk more about our research process and how co-design can bridge the gap between expectations and reality with AI tools.
Thank you, Lynn. Hello, everyone. Like Lynn said, I'm Andy Midget, Director of EdTech Partnerships here at Leanlab. Yeah, we kind of wanted to go over kind of what this means beyond just um, our work here. So we wouldn't have really been able to do all of this or gather these insights without close partnerships centered around co-design. So here's a kind of a quick overview of how we use co-design to bridge those expectations and reality. So first, we start off engaging educators directly in the R&D process and making sure that they have a clear voice in this work. We recruited a diverse participant pool from a wide variety of contexts to partner with us just to ensure that these tools are equitably designed and accessible. So by doing this, we're able to provide timely and evidence-based recommendations to our partner companies that bridge the gap between expectation and reality. And then in turn, this kind of builds trust with the educators that these tools are designed with them and their students in mind. So this quote, I think, really illustrates how impactful listening to our school partners can be, not only in building trust, but making impactful changes to your tool. They are a very, very important part, not only of our findings, but in general, as you're developing your tools, those voices must be heard. So since we're still in the very early days of AI tools, we've developed this roadmap to kind of guide companies in crafting a strong foundation that they can continue to build on top of with future R&D efforts. So we start off foundationally with our logic model and our learning principles, really being able to illustrate all the mechanisms that go into these tools, embedding these learning science principles in them so that the foundations are solid. From there, we move into actual testing and evaluation and development of these with rapid cycle evaluations, and then high quality training of those AI tools to make sure that the models that are being used are used specifically for the intended purpose. And then just to dive in a little bit more on the rapid cycle evaluation and kind of the R&D aspect of it, the rapid cycle evaluation allows for that quick iteration of the tool that not only strengthens the tool itself, but also strengthens the trust that we've been discussing this whole time by taking that feedback directly from users and making those changes in real time. So once those iterations have been built, in an operationally stable product, then we can conduct more feasibility studies to strengthen implementations. And then from there, we can kind of prepare for more rigorous correlational and quantitative studies to show the impact these tools are having. Getting that very quick insight, that feedback from our teachers, showing them, hey, we listen to you. We're able to make these changes and develop these products specifically for your needs. Now that this product is stable, let's test it and see how effective this actually is with our students. And then just kind of wrap up here. Here's another quote that really to me says, while we might be apprehensive about this new world of AI, it is coming. And co-design partnerships like this kind of have the ability to ease that apprehension, and so that we can embrace this new world with optimism and ensure that it has a positive impact on our students. So yeah, we really appreciate everyone for joining. Thank you very much for participating. I think we'll take the next 15 or so minutes to take questions. So feel free to put those in the Q&A box.
So I have a question we can get started with here, which is how long does it take to gather these types of insights for a company? Maybe Lynn, you could start with that one.
Yeah, I mean, I would say it really ranges. So part of when we say co-design research, it doesn't just mean co-designing with teachers and students in classrooms. We're co-designing with our clients and product developers too, to come up with a research plan that really works for them, and we'll answer their research questions. So it all really depends, and it depends on the kind of study they want to do too. Just to give you one example, so we've talked a couple times about this rapid cycle evaluation study, and for that, sometimes that can look like 12 weeks, where we're kind of splitting it into we could split it into 3-4 week rapid cycles, where after each of those cycles, we share insights about what we've learned from teachers and students using the tool with the developers. They're able to make rapid changes, and then we reintroduce the tool to the classroom. And so you can imagine, like, you do that 3 times, you can learn a ton in just the course of 12 weeks. But again, it sort of depends.
Thanks, Lynn. Another question here is, how does a company finance this type of research? Maybe Katie or Andy, you could speak to that.
I can jump in and then pass it off to Andy. Typically, we work in many different ways. Some established companies are self-financing it. We do work with some venture-backed companies, with work hand in hand with some philanthropists that help support reducing the cost or subsidizing the cost of that work. And it's good timing right now. There's also SBIR applications that are open. We are proud to be an SBIR partner. So if you're considering applying for that information, oh, thank you. Robin had it in the slide. You can take the QR code here. I'll also put the link in the chat. Andy and Lynn, can you also help remind our participants when our application is closed, what application date is for SBIR?
Yeah, sure. So the official SBIR application close date is January 8th, but we have our own application basically to partner with developers in writing and submitting these grants. And our internal application deadline is December 6th, or sorry, December 4th.
Great. Also, go ahead, Andy. Also looks like there's a couple questions in the chat, if we would like to go into those. One being, and this might be for Lynn as well, are educators experiencing hallucinations in some of their outputs in addition and taking too much time? And is that leading to more barriers of adoption?
That's a really great question. I don't know if I've necessarily heard from educators about hallucinations, but there have been things like when AI is trying to assess or provide feedback to students, teachers will see places where like they don't necessarily feel like the feedback is complete or accurate or capturing everything. So that's not necessarily hallucination, but again, it gets to that trust issue that we were talking about, where if they see that, even honestly, just once, that's going to make them wonder if they're going to see that again. So yeah, great question.
And there's another question. Do we look at what teachers are willing to pay to use these tools? And if so, what kinds of price points those are?
Yeah, so I can jump in and then I'll probably hand it off to Lynn as well. So most of our research we're doing is with schools, and the majority of these studies, we were, rather than doing more customer discovery work where we're asking about willingness to pay, we were more focused on the usability of the tools. Part of our process is we really respect educator expertise. So we actually pay participants for market rate for their time and expertise of contributing to these studies, as well as give grants to schools. And we're typically working B2B with school systems, but not always. That said, Lynn and Andy, have we collected any data about willingness to pay for these emergent AI tools? Do you have anything to share?
I don't think I've necessarily collected any data, but I think with the agreement to participate in research like this, I think teachers are kind of agreeing that, prove it to me. If this is something that actually does work in our classroom, if this is something that has the outcomes that you're saying it is, then I think that I've seen that price point can sometimes not really matter. And price point's kind of hard to try to define because of how many different types of tools are out there. There's some that just help with teacher productivity. There's some that are claiming that they're going to help move the needle in student assessment scores, and those have kind of vastly different price points because of the outcomes. So I think that building the trust in these tools kind of opens up that funding, that yes, if you can prove that this works for teachers, if you can kind of show these outcomes are accurate, then it's almost a no-brainer to pay for these types of things. But that's why this research I think is so important, just to build that trust and to kind of show that all of these kind of claims are what they say they are.
Another question around teacher trust was that we mentioned that trust was an emerging theme from our research. Was it related to a lack of trust in the responses generated, or more in the data algorithms used to create or train the AI models?
Oh, this is a fantastic question. I think the answer is both. I think you may have seen one of the quotes on the slide that I shared said, the teacher said, was basically like, if I just kind of could see what was going on under the hood, I might actually trust it better. I just don't understand how it's coming up with the things that it's coming up with. So that to me points to like, they don't understand the inputs or like how AI is even working, what it's doing to spit out what it is. But then of course, like, they've also seen some issues with not necessarily agreeing with the outputs. I talked about this one tool that was giving students feedback and they didn't always agree with the feedback. And so I really think that it's both. Yeah, great question.
Someone asked us to go back to the slide of how we're bridging the gap of expectations and reality. And I believe this is the slide that you were asking about. I don't know if someone on our team wants to kind of go through these steps one more time, or these recommendations.
Sure. I mean,
I'd be
I think
happy.
all of us could jump in. Oh,
Go ahead, Katie. That's all you.
yeah, at a high level, and then I'll pass it off if you have more to add. I think the headline here is how do you, I think first, the first end goal is how do you get to a product that's working reliably as that might suggest that it is living up to the promise that you hope to see or the change you hope to see for your students. So that might be you have an initial hypothesis around that it's saving teacher time, and then you want to really make sure that the product is performing as elegantly as possible in a consistent enough manner that you're seeing teachers come back to it again and again. And you might look at indicators that are suggesting they're trusting the content as well, as we've been discussing. And then once you have that kind of reliability of performance, then we like to layer on the more efficacy or impact oriented measures that might tell us more about, is there a relationship between that and student performance? Because AI is so dynamic, that last one on high quality training, I think this is a misnomer that it's linear, because we know that the way product development, especially with AI, is not always linear. But to the point of trust, there's also this opportunity to continue to refine that model with really high quality training sets. So where we're seeing this work really well is when you have master educators or really high quality instructional materials that you're using to guide the AI help reinforce the quality of outputs that are high quality, instilling trust in educators, et cetera. Andy, Lynn, is there anything you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, I'll just add one thing. Just to take a little bit more of a nuanced kind of approach to this. So it isn't necessarily that this disconnect or this gap between expectation and reality is in and of itself a problem. It's if like that problem isn't solved before this tool is rolled out for broader use in classrooms, right? So that's where we come in, where we can actually put these tools into very controlled environments where teachers know they're going to run into issues. They sort of expect it, that's part of the process because we're testing it out. And that's where we can learn like, oh, this isn't working. That's where we uncover where these expectations and realities are not meeting, and we can help developers bridge them together through the research that we do.
We had another question. Oh, sorry. Do you want to say more, Katie?
Oh, I was wondering, for sake of time, if we could combine the last couple questions.
Yes, maybe one of you could speak to our decision to anonymize the tools that we conducted research with during this period, as well as we had another question about how many different companies we take on and how companies can apply to partner with us for co-design.
Yeah, sure. So the first question around anonymizing. So one thing that we want to be true is that we are really protecting any intellectual property of our companies. So want to make sure that we're sharing high level trends that can be helpful to the field, but are, protecting any sensitive information from our partners. That said, we know it's an emergent field and there's lots to learn, and we want to make sure we're all working together toward the end goal of benefiting students learning. And there's some nuggets of wisdom here that we want to share with the field. We won't disclose the exact tools that have been studied. And I'm also seeing questions around are people, if they're encountering frustration with a tool, defaulting to these more kind of generic tools like ChatGPT or Claude, et cetera. We didn't study that, so I don't quite know. There are lots of studies coming out from EdWeek, et cetera, that are showing the patterns of the most highly used edtech products, generative AI products, which also show that ChatGPT is still one that people are going back to again and again. A lot of the Copilot tools, I'm happy to share more links there around what other researchers are seeing in terms of the most highly used generative AI tools.
I can take the how many different companies we work with, and it really kind of depends on the different projects we have going on. We don't just do feasibility studies. We can kind of do everything from a pretty simple concept validation where you get your idea in front of kind of decision makers, educators, admins, just to kind of see if this is something that's worth pursuing or building out further. And then we go all the way up to these more correlational quantitative studies. So just depending on the number of studies and the timelines we have, I'd say there's not a limit, but it's just, depending on the kind of the capacity of our team to take these things on. So we're always happy to discuss timelines, look at the kind of project that you're looking to do, and tell you a very accurate timeline of when we'd be able to get to that, or that kind of sounded bad. When we'd be able to really be able to focus on the co-design process with you, based off of what your needs are. So sometimes it's pretty immediate, and sometimes we do look for the better times in the school year. Sometimes it's really good to implement a study at the beginning of the school year instead of halfway through the spring semester. So all those timelines kind of take into account what or how many projects we have going on at a single time. But again, happy to discuss your particular project or ideas whenever you'd like.
There's one more question about Katie, going back to kind of the machine learning base that some of the products we're working with are using. What source does the AI machine learning pull from? Is there a standard set of databases or websites that align with the curriculum pedagogy so the answers are more similar to what a teacher would come up with?
Yeah, this is a huge emerging area. Right now, the majority of tools in the market are still pulling from ChatGPT as an open AI. That said, there are some folks in the field that are working toward more education-friendly, focused kind of LLMs. This is very new, this is emergent, but we do know that some big philanthropies are working to kind of crowdsource best practices from learning science and pedagogies to embed in AI infrastructure to help accelerate more pedagogically aligned AI development. So more to come on that. It's very new, very emergent, but we hope to see that field emerge and be more accessible over the next year, and that we'll see more publicly available training data come to fruition as well. The other piece that was in here around curriculum pedagogy, we are seeing quite a trend toward companies seeing to what extent they can ingest OERs or high quality instructional materials. So there are some early companies out there that are ingesting things like illustrative math, Eureka math, things of that nature that are more available, that have been vetted. So I think that will be also a trend that continues.
I think that's a good place to wrap it up. Any closing thoughts or last minute additions from our team? If not, thank you all for joining us. Katie, did you want to say something?
Oh, I was just going to thank you everybody for joining us. If you ever have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. I'm Katie at leanlabeducation.org. The rest of us are our first names at the organization. So don't be a stranger. We love this work. We love to dive in and talk deeply about how we can build emerging technologies that really reflect the needs of our classrooms. So thank you for all joining, and we hope to continue the conversation. Should we speak to the next webinar in a couple of weeks, Robin?
Yes. So we are hosting a follow-up webinar that will be a conversation with several founders and impact investors. Katie will be moderating, and that is going to be on December 4th at the same time. And we will also, the link to sign up for that is on our website. Maybe I can drop that in the chat really quickly. And then we will also have the information from this webinar up on our website, both in narrative form as well as a recording of the webinar will be shared in the next few days as well. And as Katie said, reach out to anyone on our team. All of our information is also on our website, leanlabeducation.org. And I think with that, we will say thanks again and have a great rest of your day.